It's this part, the Evenstar pendant or necklace that was given to Aragorn from Arwen. This was a sign or token of her love for him and her sacrifice in choosing to live a mortal life instead of immortality, her choosing to be human as opposed to an elf. And also a representation that she is betrothed to Aragorn and that one day they would be able to be together and to be married. However, you may not know this, but that Evenstar necklace or pendant is not in the books. It's only in the movie. Though I love the books, this is one change that I really appreciate and I do like. Again, that pendant is known as the Evenstar, and Arwen's name is actually Arwen Undomiel. Arwen in Sindarin, an Elvish language, means noble maiden, and Undomiel in another Elvish language called Quenya means even star. And in the books, Arwen is referred to as the even star of her people. So it seems fitting to have that pendant to be called the Even Star, given that name having a strong connection with Arwen. And the way that I interpret one of the fundamental reasons why that piece of jewelry is added to the films that's not in the books, it provides a way for Aragorn to remember who he has promised himself to. And I like to think one of the reasons why ultimately he chooses in the movies to finally pursue his ancestral right to be the king. For those of you who have read the books, you already know this, but if you haven't read the books, you may not be aware that Aragorn in the books actually never has a hesitation about becoming king. As the story sets out, he knows that he's supposed to be king, and throughout the trilogy of the books, all that he's doing is to prepare and to achieve this ultimate goal. And in the books, there's no hesitation about this mantle of kingship, and that ultimately he's just preparing every step of the way to one day sit on the throne and to unite the northern kingdom of Arnor and the southern kingdom of Gondor under one king. In the books, that's actually the ultimatum that Elrond gives to Aragorn if he wants to marry Arwen. I'm paraphrasing, but Elrond tells Aragorn, if you want to marry my daughter, the only way that I'll allow that to happen is if you become king of both the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, Arnor and Gondor, and that would be the only way that he would approve of their marriage. So from my perspective, one of the motivating factors of Aragorn in the books, who is diligently striving to become king, is for him to be able to be king, is him pursuing that kingship for his love. I'm not saying that's the only reason why he's pursuing that, but from my perspective and how I view it, that would be one of the essential motivating factors for him to pursue that kingship. And in the book, Arwen makes as a gift for Aragorn the banner of Elendil, a black banner with a white tree, with 7 stars and a high crown, that ultimately, when displayed, would be a public declaration of who Aragorn is, that he was heir to the throne and descended from Elendil. This gift, however, doesn't occur in the movie, but what does occur in the movie is the gift of that pendant, the Evenstar. So me personally, as I'm watching the movie, I like to take what I know from the books and put them into the movie. So despite Aragorn having a reluctancy of the throne in the movies, which is complete opposite of how he is in the books, once he does finally commit and makes that decision to become king, and as he has that Evenstar pendant, in connecting the books and the movies, in my mind, the way that I like to look at it is he's able to keep that close to him for him to remember at least one of the most important reasons why he's doing all of this. And in thinking of some of the potential connections and significance of that name, Evenstar, or Evening Star as I understand it, is at least partially referring to dusk or twilight, that period of time between night and day when there's about to be a significant change to the environment. Arwen, in a sense, could represent the twilight of the elves. For those of you who have read the books or watched the movie, she of course decides to stay and becomes immortal, while all the other elves sail to the Undying Lands, or in other words, Valinor. So she, in a sense, would be the last of her kind there in Middle-earth, as all the other elves and her family have left. So just as the sun sets and the night falls, she's like that little area in between, the twilight, between significant changes that are about to occur. And within Middle-earth, there's also another evening star. Just as Arwen is the even star, the other even star or evening star refers to her grandfather Eärendil. Arwen's grandparents, Eärendil and Elwing, lived in a time that was tumultuous, under the reign and terror of the first Dark Lord Morgoth, Sauron's master. Not only that, Elwing had possession of a Silmaril, one of the stones that was fashioned and created by Fëanor. And in the early history of the world that Middle-earth resides in, that world being Arda, in a land called Valinor, there were those 2 trees that provided the light to that land. One tree providing a golden light like the sun, and one tree providing a silver light like the moon. And Fëanor was actually able to capture the light of these 2 trees into 3 jewels, and those jewels were the Silmarils. Later, that Dark Lord Morgoth would destroy those 2 trees with the help of a hideous, spider-like creature, Ungoliant, and then he would steal those Silmarils. Morgoth would place those Silmarils upon a crown and wear it upon his head. Morgoth then fled to Middle-earth, where he would continue to rule and reign in terror. Fast forward many years, and through different events that occurred, Elwing, Arwen's grandmother, had possession of one of these Silmarils. However, Feanor, who had created those Silmarils, had made his sons swear an oath that no one should have those Silmarils except for them. So in an attempt to reclaim that Silmaril that they believed was rightfully theirs, they waged war upon Elwing's home. Elwing was able to heroically escape and thrust herself into the waters. She then was saved by the Valar Ulmo. And if you're not sure what that means, the god of the Tolkien universe is Eru Ilúvatar. And before he created that world of Arda, which Middle-earth sits in, he created these divine, angelic, powerful spiritual beings, the Ainur. And the Ainur were divided into 2 groups, the Valar, which were more powerful, and the Maiar, which were less powerful. And Ulmo is one of those more powerful Valar. And Ulmo was actually the Lord of the Waters. And Ulmo saved Elwing and transformed her into a bird, and the Silmaril upon her chest, and she was able to fly to her husband, Eärendil. Eärendil was a mariner, and he was sailing the seas at the time of that attack. And once Elwing arrived to him, they both sailed to Valinor. And Valinor, or sometimes referred to as the Undying Lands, that's where those Valar, those powerful angelic spiritual beings, lived. This was a risk for both Eärendil and Elwing to do. From my understanding, Eärendil was immortal. Though he had both elf and man in his ancestry, he was immortal. And no mortals were allowed to sail or set foot on Valinor. But he and Elwing did this to plead for their help to fight against Morgoth. And part of the consequences for that action is neither he nor Elwing could return to Middle-earth. However, he was given a gift, and that gift was to be able to wear that Silmaril upon his brow. And in that ship, him being a mariner, he would no longer sail the seas, but he would actually be able to sail the skies amongst the stars. And the light from that Silmaril upon his brow would be the evening or Evenstar, which for us would have a connection to the planet Venus. Tragically, when all of this occurred, and Elwing and her people were attacked and she had to thrust herself into the ocean to try to survive, that left their 2 sons, their twin sons, Elrond and Elros, alone. Thankfully, 2 of the sons of Feanor took pity upon Elrond and Elros and raised them. And then, of course, Elrond himself becomes a father to Arwen. So Arwen's grandfather, Eärendil, sails the skies, and the light of that Silmaril upon his brow is the evening or Evenstar. And she too holds that title of Evenstar. Symbolically, just as twilight comes and the sun begins to set and the night begins to fall, that is what she would represent as the elves were leaving and going to the Undying Lands. She being the last of her people, with all of her kindred, sailing to the Undying Lands, to Valinor, where those Valar live. And so the sun was setting on the elves' time in Middle-earth. Arwen being the Evenstar to represent the twilight of the elves, leaving and beginning a new journey with their lives in Valinor. Lastly, Arwen was able to choose to be immortal because of the decision and bravery of her grandfather and grandmother, Eärendil and Elwing. That was part of the reward of their sacrifice in sailing to Valinor. Because in their ancestry, both Elwing and Eärendil had man and elf within their ancestry, the Valar gave them the opportunity to choose whether or not they wanted to be amongst the kindred of elves and have immortality, or to be amongst the kindred of men. And that choice was later given to Elrond and Elros, and that choice was again given to Arwen. And in the movie, when she gives that pendant to Aragorn, symbolically meaning, I choose to have immortal life and I choose to be with you. She was able to make that choice because of her grandfather, who is the even or evening star within the sky, sailing the skies with that Silmaril upon his brow. And so in thinking how I might be able to apply that within my life, or perhaps it's something that you could apply in yours too, having something physically in hand that we can look at while we're going through something difficult in order to get to a main objective or goal, I think is really important and assists in our ability to not give up and to keep pushing towards whatever goal that we have in mind. Again, because I like to connect the book and the movie, when I watch the movie and Aragorn has that Evenstar, and especially when he finally commits and decides to be king, for me, when he has that, that's a tangible reminder of one of the reasons why he's doing what he's doing. So in my life, what that could potentially look like, it could be something as simple as, if I have different goals or objectives, to write them down, to have them up where I can continually look at them and be reminded of them. And not only that, have different objectives and how I might be able to accomplish that goal. So that way I can continually look at, what am I striving for? Print out a picture of whatever it is that you're trying to achieve or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, and put it in a place that where you can see it frequently. So that way you can continually be reminded the reason why you're sacrificing, the reason why you're working hard, and the reason why you're doing all these things to accomplish this goal. And it's that physical thing or something that we can see to remind us of, why are we doing what we're doing? Maybe it's just getting up and going to work, and maybe for whatever reason that's a really difficult or hard thing for you to do. And you take a look at a picture of your family and you remember, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm going through everything that I'm going through for them. And then just another thought. To me, that pendant also assisted Aragorn in remembering what's really important. Sometimes we can get so caught up in the stress and the drama and the circus of life, and we can begin to forget what's really important. And we start to worry and stress and focus on things that really aren't that important, while also neglecting things that are important. If we keep something, an object, a photo, whatever it is, to continually remind us of what's actually really important, it can bring us back and ground us. All this other stuff, I know it might be difficult to go through, but at the end of the day, it's not that important. This is what's really important. And then lastly, when you have something tangible that you look at frequently to remind you of what you're doing or of what is really important, it can help you during the stretches of time where perhaps you're working towards a goal, you're almost there, but it's getting so hard that you just want to quit. If you have that there, it might be able to provide just that little incentive or initiative that you need to be able to push through to get to where you need to go. So those are just some of my thoughts on that change in the movie from the books of Arwen having that Evenstar pendant and giving it to Aragorn. Again, I love that part of the movie despite it not being the books. I think it was a great thing that Peter Jackson did. And so I love that part.